Welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero, and I'm a licensed therapist.
I'm Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but we're nearly at the end of the show, and I've been here this long, so I think we're just going to stick it out to the end of the season. What do you think?
I love that you are still in denial that this is what we are doing now.
I wouldn't say I was in denial. Hopeful, perhaps, but not denial. No, hey, look, the show had its moments. Last episode was a little dull for me. I, got to be honest, the first half of this hometowns was really dragging for me. But we got some drama, a little bit of a surprise at the end. The last two, or the last hour, really, the last two hometowns were actually quite interesting, and I thought there's a lot to talk about in both of them. And so, no, I'm reinvigorated after last week's real, downtrodden sort of malaise of an episode.
Well, that's always like kind of the boring episode is the one before hometowns. It's just like a filler in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it felt like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So, shall we explain what we're doing here?
Yes. But before we do, can you please, all of you watching us at home, hit that like button at the bottom of this video, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We're doing it. We're getting very, very close to 1,000. We are almost there, and with a couple episodes left of this season of The Bachelor, I think we could do it. So hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. If you are a subscriber and you like this show, share it with a friend. That helps. That goes a long way.
Yeah, and also please hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
So we are here tonight, fresh off this week's episode, talking about The Bachelor season 28, episode 8, where it's hometowns week, and we are visiting 4 different families.
Yeah, and we're spread out across the country. Not just this country, but also our neighbors to the north, 29% Canadians. Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you. Yeah, there was a lot of really interesting dynamics at play in half of the hometowns. And I feel really good about my pick in Daisy here for a lot of reasons that we can get into throughout the episode. But, I thought it was so obvious in the way that Joey interacted in the various different hometowns with the different families, and even just in the daytime activities, there was, you saw some, we'll say, evolution of how he's interacted with some of these women. And I do think that, some of these interactions really solidified whether or not he has a real connection with some of these women and which ones don't. And I still maintain, after watching this episode, that he has no spark with Rachel whatsoever.
He picked her at the end.
I don't know. Rachel has been one of these people who has, she should have probably been eliminated at number 7, but she's able to just skate by because other women keep making just cardinal sins. And it's just so fascinating to see somebody who, I think he genuinely, we've talked about this, I think he genuinely likes Rachel as a person, but there is no romantic spark there. He's never picking her. He's never marrying her. But you saw all of these other women really make major mistakes. And this week, it was Maria's opportunity to make a mistake. Maria misplayed every aspect of this date, basically, or of the hometown experience. And I think it's just so obvious that he really does care about Maria and has a connection with Maria, but he just seems exhausted by it now. He seems frustrated, exhausted, and the stunt she pulled at the end, stay tuned to talk about that, is just, I think it was just a step too far. This is the second rose ceremony that has been interrupted by, drama related to Maria. And, you just can't, you can't.
You have to know when to say when.
Exactly. All right, so let's start right with the Kelsey date. We'll do them in the order that we were shown. Kelsey is from
New Orleans.
New Orleans, yes. Kelsey's from New Orleans.
If you remember, on night 1, she came with a voodoo doll.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that. I hated that intro too. Yeah. So okay, so Kelsey A, yep, from New Orleans. What I There's parts of this date that I liked and disliked. The daytime aspect. The first is they had some nice time together going around, she showing him the city. There's some sentimentalness to it, but not like a ton of it. There was a whole butterfly thing, which is, I guess, meaningful to them. But at the same time,
I
the
love how you just completely minimize that. That was like one of the most, that was incredibly sentimental for Kelsey and for her family.
sure,
And
yeah.
you're like, yeah, the butterfly thing.
But you can see butterflies anywhere. You can see butterflies, in Canada, in Japan. Like
Mhm.
they're not. It's not like you have to be in New Orleans to see a butterfly. I think is really more the point. Whereas you saw something more like with the Daisy date, which we'll get to later, where the actual physical location gave great insight into her as a person and her upbringing, which I thought was really meaningful. You didn't get that sense of grounding that you got with Daisy. You didn't get that same sense with Kelsey. I thought it was a real missed opportunity on
Mm.
Kelsey's part. That being said,
Like it didn't feel very home
it didn't feel very far. It felt like they were just walking around a city like it was any other city, like it was.
Yeah.
Were they Malta, or
Mhm.
was that Lexi? Lexi was Malta.
They were in Spain. I don't
Spit,
know where they were.
whichever one. Yeah, wherever they did their one-on-one date. Um, it just to me it felt like a missed opportunity.
Mhm.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I do agree that it did feel reminiscent of every other time that they've gone to a city and explored the city together. But, Kelsey and Joey have done that on a date before. And so maybe that does recreate like this is something that we do together, that we've done together. I think that you are greatly downplaying the importance to Kelsey of the butterflies. And yes, of course, do butterflies exist in most locations that you and I are familiar with? Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know how prevalent they are in New Orleans. I have no idea. But what's important here is that like Kelsey was really missing her mom during this and really feeling the absence of her mom as she is getting very serious with a man who she is considering marrying. And to not have her mom with her during this experience must be really hard. And so, does confirmation bias kick in a little bit where she has this association of mom and butterflies? And so she might be just paying more attention and seeing them more, that they are more present. But that just speaks to the amount that they were featured in the episode. Speaks to the amount that Kelsey needed to feel the presence of her mom. And so for me, it wasn't not so much about the butterflies, it was just how much Kelsey was craving and seeking just the comfort of having her mom along with her during this huge part of her life.
Okay, so I take that point. I would counter with, but what about Joey? At the end of the day, he's the one who gets to make the decisions in this event. And what I saw from Joey was the issue I think I have with this daytime part of it. I think it turned around significantly when we got to the family portion, but the daytime portion of the activities felt to me like the spark was just not there. The typical spark. It jumps off the screen with these two, and it just didn't do that for me in this day date. And then every stop along the way, Joey is asking her questions, good questions that give her opportunities to really be vulnerable, your issue, and to go deep. And what I kept writing down was another opportunity to say something meaningful, and she can't seem to get beyond the surface. It felt like she was so surface level in this date and was repeating a lot of the same themes we've already heard. And it just felt like Joey was digging and digging for something new, and she just couldn't get there during the day.
I did notice that Joey checked in with her a lot. And was she, what did you think that he was pulling for? Like, what do you think he was?
I think that he right now is struggling tremendously between Daisy and Kelsey. And I think that Daisy is ahead at the moment. That might be my own confirmation bias. But I think that Daisy is ahead, and I think he genuinely likes Kelsey. And he was trying to give himself trying to give her an opportunity to wow him and for her to take the front runner spot from Daisy. And it just felt like he kept lobbing these
Like,
softballs
give me
at
an
her.
example. I don't know.
Like
I
when he would
can't
just
even
say,
think of what you're.
like, so when he was saying, oh, hey, like today's a day that, okay, so they're in the bar
Mhm.
and she brings up her desire to meet his mother
Mhm.
specifically. And he passes that back to her, talking about how this is, kind of an important day. What is it like for you not to have your mom here? And she said some sad things, right? But it wasn't anything new or deep. It was just kind of more of the same. When second,
But why can't it be more of the same?
well, but if you're Joey and you are trying to differentiate between two amazing women, I do think Kelsey and Daisy are both pretty amazing women from what we've seen. And if you're trying to differentiate between two, you're looking for something here. And so that was the second example. The first example was when the bride was having a
Mhm.
bridal shoot, and he's asking her specifically about how she's feeling about that. And again, you got real, and I hate to say it, was she 25 years old? You got a real 25-year-old answer, which is not what we're accustomed to with Kelsey. Kelsey, we both been very complimentary of her. She is an old 25. Like
Mature
a
25.
mature 25. That's what I mean. A mature 25. I just wasn't feeling that this episode.
Mhm.
And I feel like it just seemed to me like Joey was trying to get
Yeah,
something more.
I guess I can see what you're saying. I think she was just so emotional.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that might have been a barrier to kind of going a layer deeper. I don't know. I think you're being highly critical. But let's go to the family portion because um this was dad number one who was a rock star of the evening. We
He
met.
was a great. I mean, this is a phenomenal father figure, which is what we expected.
Yeah.
She put him on a high pedestal, and he, for his 15 minutes on camera, lived up to that pedestal
Mhm.
as far as I'm concerned.
Why do you say that?
Let's contrast him with Maria's father.
Mm.
All right. Maria's father just came on with the tough guy mentality. Maybe he's a tough guy. I don't know, right? He looks like a Ozzy Osbourne roadie, honestly, right? But like he comes on with a tough guy, persona. I don't I do think that he meant what he said, but he just kind of an eye roll, sort of like, I don't know how much of this is you mean it, how much of it is you playing a tough guy, how much of it's for the camera, right? And then you contrast that against Kelsey's father, where I believe that it would not have mattered if there was a camera in his face or not. That conversation would have gone the exact same
Mhm.
way.
Seemed
Can't
genuine, authentic.
Genuine, authentic. You felt his love for his daughter and his family, and when he's the type of person where when he shakes your hand and gives you some affirmation that you did well, you as a young man, stand a little straighter.
Mhm.
If Maria's father told me I had done a good job and affirmed me in some way, I'd be like, okay,
Mhm.
thanks. Like, what do I care? And that's, I think, a major differentiating point. And I think that did. And I think there were a lot of factors that played into Joey's choices in this episode. But I do think the interaction with the fathers was a major point.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I thought Mark was incredible. I loved hearing his conversation with Kelsey, and I really also like that she shared with him what she shared with Joey last week about how meaningful it was for her to see him step up in the way of being a protector after his wife had died, and that she's looking for someone that will be there through good times and bad, and knowing that that's out there, and that like, and that he represents that, and that she's looking for someone like him, I thought was probably really meaningful for her dad to hear. One thing that, like, there were a couple of through lines throughout this episode, and one of them emerged here. And I'm still going to talk about Mark, dad, but I need to bring in the sister Taylor in order to illustrate my point. So we first see Kelsey talk with her sister Taylor. Don't know if she's older or younger, but Taylor tells the in her face to camera interview and Kelsey that she is very worried that her sister is going to get her heart broken. There's a protectiveness there. And so she's saying like, I could tell you really like him. I don't want you to be heartbroken. On the other side of things, we see Mark, her dad, who says, um, I think that Kelsey is ready for happiness and enjoying life. And with that means that she's ready for heartbreak. And I thought, yes, like that is actually that's such great advice. Number one, that's a great perspective. That is someone who trusts his daughter. The thing that was very frustrating to me throughout this episode was how a lot of the families were infantilizing these women and thinking like a heartbreak is going to destroy you. Heartbreak is part of life. And guess what? We can withstand it. If this man can lose the love of his life and carry on, we'll all be just fine if we end a relationship that's 4 weeks long. And so I did appreciate just that there are two sides to the coin, right? Like, yes, if we are mature enough to be married, we should also be mature enough to withstand a broken heart. And I loved that perspective so much.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Joey says as they're exiting the date that they are leaving stronger than they came in on that day. So, like, no surprises there that this was going to be a good date. Family's on board. Kelsey is, more deeply falling in love, the whole nine. So, I mean, Kelsey's date was pretty simple.
Yeah, the thing with her date was there was a simplicity to it. They basically just did the exact same walk around town date. And then he, went and met her family. I've already said I didn't love the daytime part of it, the dynamics there, but I thought Joey knows how to sell himself. He knows how to make a good impression. And you could tell that he was comfortable and it was a little bit effortless. And because it was a little bit effortless, he really, I think, shined, in a way that we maybe haven't even seen him shine yet. And again, this happens twice in this episode, and then it definitely doesn't happen the other two times. And yeah, it continually reinforces that I think the Kelsey connection is a real connection.
Yeah, the other thing, I mean, I know you're drawing a lot of comparisons between Kelsey's date and Daisy's date, but both Kelsey's dad and Daisy's mom say, I think you're in love with him. Like, say it, do it. And I thought that also, you said having trust in their daughter. I think that was also just such a good indicator of attunement to your child, but also having just a trust that like, put yourself out there, you're gonna be okay, kid. Like it was awesome to see.
I do think that this is extraordinarily prevalent right now in our culture and in our society, to overly protect our children from harms. And this is a uniquely sort of Western society thing, right? Because we have all of this wealth and affluence where we can just spend our time hovering around worrying about our kids. But like, we're not doing the younger generations good in this regard. We've lost as a society a certain amount of resilience. And this is a core problem, right? And this is just one little microcosm example of that. Yeah.
I agree. And we as therapists talk about this a lot. Like everyone is so, not everyone, a lot of people, most people are so eager to stay comfortable.
Mhm.
And to not feel comfortable feels unsafe, and that therefore they don't want to take a risk. But there's such a huge difference between lack of comfort and lack of safety. And we as a society have started to like converge the two, and they're very very different. And staying comfortable does inhibit our growth. But as you're saying, like it inhibits our growth because it doesn't give us opportunities to fail and learn how to manage through and navigate through failure or discomfort in order to build resiliency, build kind of tenacity and grit. We need that in order to evolve, but also like learn how to regulate our emotions, like learn how to navigate challenges. Life is not comfortable.
Yeah.
It just simply is not. And so we've got to live through it in order to learn how to navigate it. All right, should we move on to Rachel's hometown?
Yes. This one was hard to watch.
You are being super critical tonight.
The mother was not in, the father was not in. The only one that was in was the sister, and she kind of came across as not a serious or mature individual. So like her opinion not super relevant here. I just it, everyone kept crying this whole time. I just I felt for Joey here because the whole time I just kept saying like poor Joey cannot catch a break.
Well,
This is a brutal hometown to sit through.
hold on. Let's back up and set it up. So yes, we go to Rachel's hometown, which is in Rancho Cucamonga, California,
What a name, by the way.
not Hawaii. And we go to her uncle's house where they're having like this big reception for them. And
Yeah,
so
a very luau style, got the roasting pig and everything like that. Yep.
well, the family's Filipino.
They are. Yep. Yep.
And so Rachel really wanted to make sure that Joey had some understanding of Filipino customs and culture in order to be respectful to her family, which I thought was very important. And he did a great job in greeting, her mom appropriately. But we got to see a lot of her family, and that I thought was also really meaningful. In like, this isn't just mom, dad, sister, nephew. This is like her extended family. And so it communicates a really strong message around the meaning of family for Rachel and her family, and the meaning of their culture to their family, that being Filipino is incredibly important to them and will probably influence how their like children get raised if they decide to have kids. So I thought that was important to see. You have to also remember the other thing that we learned in that same little conversation is that the last person she brought home was a very serious relationship where they almost got engaged. And that person had gotten very close to her family, so close, in fact, that the breakup was also very hard for them. And so I think Rachel's just trying to set him up for success, knowing that like his predecessor was revered, was really well liked. And they're likely, I mean, how could you not sort of compare the one in front of you to the one that was just here? And so that's also, I think, relevant here. It's like she really wants it to go well.
I'm walking in the door and you're trying to instruct me on a ton of your culture in 30 seconds before I walk in the door. I'm not feeling set up for success. I'm feeling like you just dumped a lot of stuff on me unprepared.
Okay. So no, I get what you're saying. I do agree that it was a lot to dump on
It was a
him.
huge information dump in a very short window of time that felt like it came out of nowhere. And then I walk into that situation and the mother is cool to me. The father is cool to me.
Cool,
Cool.
like,
As in, not cold, cool. Tepid.
and not like cool, like,
Not cool in the, 80s baby cool, like we're all like we use that to mean good. Like, no, tepid, unsure, cautious,
yeah.
right? And the father is the same. I think Joey did the best he could in that situation, but it did not feel to me like he was set up for success there. It felt like he was walking into the hornet's nest and getting an information dump in 10 seconds
I feel
before
like
he walked
your
in there.
reactions are super extreme tonight. Hornet's nest, that is overblown. So just just try. Why don't you cool down a little bit over here? Overall, while we were seeing Joey interact like amongst the family, he just like got right in there, kind of rolled his sleeves up and fully got in there, which I love to see, which could be really intimidating, right? Like you're an outsider in this family in more ways than one. And he just threw himself right in.
But Joey's good in these situations, right? He knows the things to say. He's an affable guy. He's a good-looking guy. He just knows how to get into these situations and interact well. He's a very good people person, exactly. So, there was never a surprise that he's not ever going to walk into this hometown and get a bomb. That was never going to happen.
So Rachel's date, or hometown date rather, I want to just hit on one thing with her dad. So she and her dad sit down, and her dad admits like, I've never seen the show before. I don't really know what happens. But he says to her, again, same kind of idea. He says, if it doesn't go the way that you want it to go, remain even keel. And then reminds her, like, you've been through hard things before. second dad in a row that basically says, like, you're going to be fine. It's okay. Juxtaposition, her mom just breaks down and cries in front of Joey, says that Rachel's been hurt. She's concerned about these other women. And again, worried about her daughter getting her heart broken. And again, can we please be a little bit more like Hakeem? Can we please be a little bit more like Mark and just trust that we have raised our kids or put them in positions to grow resilience that they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Because what's happened instead is that someone like Rachel or Kelsey and Daisy and Maria are all so scared of getting their heart broken that their walls are up and they're not even giving themselves a chance to really throw themselves into this thing to see if they even like this guy.
I actually think you bring up indirectly a really interesting point, and that is the dichotomy between fathering and mothering. When you look at the dynamics between a father and a mother, right? The mother is there to nurture and is there to protect you. That is the mother's predominant role, especially in the early stage of life, and it will carry on. It's the father's role to create resilience. And that's why, kind of dichotomous relationship between the nuclear family has been so successful throughout all of human history. And that's exactly what we see here. It's a perfect example of it, where the mother is like, yeah, no, or the sister in the Kelsey's case, are the female figure is very much concerned about the girl basically being broken by this, and so interested in her being protected, and the father is there basically more or less, you know, elevating her to a point of saying, you will get through this. And I think it's a beautiful thing when you see those two sides of parenting come together, because they're both so necessary.
Yeah, I like what you're saying there in terms of like the different roles that mothers and fathers can play. And I thought, yeah, seeing that play out with Rachel was pretty meaningful. So the date basically ends with Rachel saying that, I was falling for you, but now I'm falling in love with you. I don't know what the difference between those two phrases is.
I'm fairly certain that they are both meaningless.
Agreed. And then she says, we need to choose each other in this, and I want you to know that I choose you, which was nice.
I mean, he's a one of one, so that's a little less meaningful, but like.
Another thing, actually, before we wrap up Rachel, as we were kind of like comparing the parents across all the dates, is when Joey is talking to Rachel's dad, Hakeem, he says what he says to Maria's dad, which is at the end of this, there's a proposal basically, and essentially, I want to know if I have your blessing, and I'm not going to be able to like see you after this. And Hakeem says, well, you can call me on the phone and ask me. Whereas Maria's dad says, if you pick my daughter and she picks you, I trust my daughter. And so if she picks you back, then yeah, you've got it. And I love one answer more than the other here. But
Now I am curious, which one do you?
I like Maria's father's answer. Again, this having trust in your kid. I mean, is Rachel's, father's answer steeped in tradition? Probably. But it also shows or indicates maybe why Rachel is so anxious about her parents, why their approval it does actually mean something. Like it is not just in her head, like it is part of their culture, their family culture. And so I thought that was also very notable too, kind of seeing the same conversation play out two different ways.
I liked that Hakeem said, you can call me if she's the one. To my interpretation of that was, you have four women. I'm not saying yes until you tell me she's the one. I need more from you than just some vague, like, if she's the one. Like, no, I demand more of the person who's going to marry my daughter. I thought that was actually quite powerful. I actually really liked that as sort of a power play on Hakeem's part. And we know how much I hate power plays. But I actually thought that this was in some ways it was a great establishment of expectations and boundaries and what Joey can expect. Now, do I think that that pushed Joey closer to Rachel? No. If anything, it did the opposite. But Hakeem doesn't care about that. He cares about his daughter having somebody that he deems worthy. And if that statement is going to push somebody away from his daughter, then all the better, right? Because it just means that he wasn't the right guy for her. So I actually really liked Hakeem's. Now you juxtapose it with Maria's. So Maria's father, Nick, I agree with you that I liked the reinforcement in his belief in his daughter's judgment. I don't like the blanket, sure, I accept you. And this goes back to things that I've talked about, you and I off camera many times, is that I firmly believe that we need to, younger people who are considering getting married need to consider the advice of elders, especially elders who have been successfully married more than we do. And we need to take our own opinions less valuable than we do of an elder. And I think it's poor judgment when an elder cedes all of that to somebody younger who hasn't lived enough, hasn't been married, doesn't have the experience. We should be leaning on our elders to point us in the direction of we're going to be successful with and what it takes. They've been married, they've been successful, they've done it. You know what the qualities to look for. So I'm very mixed on Nick's response here because of that.
I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio.
So now we roll on to Daisy. Loved every part of this. I know confirmation bias. I know what you're all thinking. Listen, there's so many things I loved about this date. They start off first.
While watching this date, Chris is like, wow, Daisy's so pretty. Oh my gosh, Daisy's teeth are so perfect. Ah, Daisy's so great.
Is any one of those statements incorrect?
No, not at all. I don't disagree with you.
Your teeth are perfect too.
Yeah, hers are nicer. Anyway.
You're very pretty.
Thanks.
I would marry you.
That's nice.
Yeah, I thought so. So, there's so many things that were really appealing about this. So first off, it's in Minnesota. They go to her family's Christmas tree farm, and they do the kind of the horse-drawn carriagey type thing, whatever it is. But again, kind of what I was saying before, this is a location that is meaningful to her and her family. And you really get a sense for who she is in these moments and where she came from in a way that you just did not get, with either of the other two women prior to this. And I really liked that. Her friends all show up, and that felt like a little bit of a surprise potentially to both of them. And just the way that she interacted with her friends, it just showed, like, it jumped off the screen, the chemistry between the two of them. She has expressed many times in face to cameras that she struggles really to emote how she's really feeling, but you saw it there, how much she actually really likes this guy and how genuine she is. And Joey, just the way he fit into the entire thing, I loved every part of it. And then I want you to respond before we get to the family, but just every part of the family dynamic just said, this is a family that Joey would just fit into so well. But
yeah, no, I felt like I could see him in this life more than anybody else. And maybe that's because we got just a fuller glimpse of her life. We got to see her friends. We got, as you said, like we got to see like where she grew up and how she grew up, and we got to meet so much of her family. So like that could be why, but it just seemed like they really fit. And so I appreciated being able to see a lot of that. And we see, very heartfelt moments with Daisy and her friends with Joey, and her basically saying, like, you all know how insecure that I've been since getting my cochlear implant. And like, I really was worried about being rejected because of it. And essentially, Joey has changed my perspective on life, and he's helped me see myself in a different way. And that's huge. And that she was able to kind of come out and say that to her friends in front of Joey, like, that was a really, really big deal.
Yeah. So we go into the family portion of it.
Right. We have mom, dad, sister, brother, grandma, and grandpa.
3 generations. Yeah, I mean, Joey's had some extended families to deal with on this one. You know, there's so much I really liked about this. But the her mother just seems like such a warm, genuine person. Her father, it's a family where you just feel the love, right? And you feel the respect and appreciation they have for one another. And the way that I thought that the way that Joey interacted, answered questions, talked to them, I thought he nailed every part of this date.
No, I agree. We also see that really meaningful moment where her brother is speaking, and she is registering that she's hearing his voice for the first time, like as she remembers it for the first time in a really long time. So like Joey was like just really able to experience her family, and Daisy was like, able to experience Joey and her family, which is exactly what she was looking for. But yeah, to your point, the mom, total sweetheart, and she knew Daisy's not being fully vulnerable, and she had said, like, Daisy's gonna need to get vulnerable in order to let herself fully get there. And I know, like, I keep coming back to this point, but here's what I want to say about this. As so many of us, right? Like, we try to go out of our way to protect ourselves from discomfort, as we were just talking about, but just really difficult emotions. And so we think that if we can kind of blunt or avoid feeling certain things or letting ourselves feel certain things, that it will keep us safe. And while that's true, we're not robots. We can't choose specifically which emotions that we want to experience or experience less. It's kind of all or nothing when it comes to that. And so when we try to avoid our feelings of anxiousness or sadness, what we do is also decrease our ability to feel happiness or excitement or joy at its fullest extent. And so while, yeah, it's scary to feel these other more challenging emotions, it robs us of the ability to feel the full spectrum of emotions on the other side too, when we try to just say, like, nope, I'm going to keep my walls up. And I really appreciated the mom sort of highlighting this in this way, and saying, like, in order for her to fully experience this experience, the love that she might have for this guy, like, she's got to let her walls down. She's got to let this go. And I like that she said that out loud and said that to her daughter. And here we have another father who's saying to her, if you really want this to work, like, essentially do this. It's a no-brainer. Shoot your shot. It's not like you're going to lose your hearing over it. And it's such important perspective. And I think that's where, like, with Kelsey too, she's been through some tough stuff in losing her mom. Daisy has been through the ringer with her health and just regaining her hearing, her ability to hear her brother. And so I think having that perspective of, again, if this is the worst thing that's going to happen right now, you've been through a lot worse. It's going to be fine. You're still going to wake up every day and be healthy. Remember when you didn't even have that to count on. And so I just really appreciated that kind of perspective. And I think it gave Daisy the courage to be more honest and be more vulnerable. And she said, I'd rather feel it all than not, to my earlier point. So Daisy builds the courage to share with Joey how she is feeling. And she tells him that she has been falling in love with him this whole time, and she is falling in love with him now.
Which are still meaningless statements. Is that correct?
Like, it meant more from her somehow.
It really did, actually,
So she said, I'm going to go for it wholeheartedly because I think that there's something amazing here. And Joey says, I'm feeling the same way.
No, that's not what Joey said that was important. Joey said something far more important before the date even happened. In his face to camera, he says, and I quote, I see myself falling in love with Daisy. Now, two things I want to say. I see myself falling in love, meaningless. However, he does not say this, at least that we see, about any of the other three women. This is the
Doesn't
only
he
time.
say I could see Kelsey being my wife?
Yeah, well, that's even less meaningless than that. At least, come on, that's less meaningless, right? Of the four women, this is the only woman that he is as specifically used the word love in some way, shape, or form with.
Okay. I know you want it to be Daisy.
Now, I am confident it's going to be Daisy.
We'll see.
It's, I saw these dates. I saw how they interact.
You saw an edited TV show. You saw what they want us
Are
to
you
see.
telling me it's fake?
Well, according to Daisy, today was one of my favorite days of my life. So Daisy was feeling it.
Yeah, and so wasn't Joe. Joe, I mean, you saw the show. He was in. He was in. Yeah. He was more comfortable in this date than any other date.
Yeah, I think that's true. And you could even see like when they're kissing, like he just like doesn't want to pull away. Like he just like he's really in over there. Yeah.
All right. Shall we get to where all of the drama really was centered in this episode?
Just this episode?
Yeah, well, there is a soft spot in my heart for Maria. I think that this was a bad episode for her. I think that she had some high moments and had some very low moments. And I don't think she could recover from a couple of major misplays.
But it wasn't just about this date. It was the build up.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So ultimately they go to Niagara Falls.
And before the date, Joey says, we always have a good time. I never doubt I'm going to have a good time. We have a spark, but is the spark enough, especially with the bumps in the road that they've just had? Yeah. So
she is literally the only one of the four where there's been bumps in the road. There's been no other bumps with anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that the Sydney Leia bumps were not necessarily of Maria's doing, but the more recent bumps were 100% forced errors.
But they still count, right? So like even as Joey is evaluating, his relationship with Maria, he can't not count and we had that going on and that going on. Like it's just a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. So they do the Maid of the Mist. They chat a little bit before they go to her parents' house or her father's house. He asks her about the last time they were together, and she has a 100% complete retreat from her prior position and walks the entire thing back, doubles down and reiterates how much she's in and it will never happen again. This is really probably what she should have been doing last episode. But it just felt too little too late. That it has crept in. We talked about it last episode. His biggest fear is not being chosen, not being picked, someone not reciprocating. And now we've had two situations where she has talked about going home. And now he's had a chance to kind of stew on this for however long it's been between the last date and hometowns. It was just too late.
Yeah. And Joey was saying, again, toward the beginning of this episode, like how little confidence that he has in their relationship, especially compared to the others. The other thing that Joey had learned is that he's the first man that Maria's ever brought home. And
you see his face?
Yeah, he was concerned. And he had even said in a voiceover, like, how has she gone this far without opening up? And so we're seeing kind of this bigger picture of Maria, where she's incredibly avoidant of vulnerability. When we get to her, her home and we meet her friend says the same thing, that like when things get close, she puts her walls up. And we had speculated about her attachment style last week. And so we have more evidence shout out to my fellow therapist in the comments, who was helping me think through attachment styles for Maria. And yeah, it sounds like she's definitely that anxious avoidant attachment style, that disorganized attachment style, that someone who wants love, but when it's getting close, she pulls away. And that's, we see her, she freezes up, she avoids, she makes jokes, she shuts down. Like she really, she's having a hard time getting close, making connection.
I mean, I agree completely. And this is highlighted actually by something her brother says, which is Maria. He said, I assume that Maria is the heartbreaker or something like that, right? I forget the exact quote. But
Maria
that,
has always been the heartbreaker.
yeah, which I thought that landed directly, into what we've been thinking all along is that, she's not an individual that um, cedes power or control in a relationship very often, is what I would assume. You were talking about how Joey is the first person that she has brought home. And I want to ask you, what would be your response or what would be your reaction if you learned that, you know, you were dating somebody and they never brought somebody home and you were the first person?
I
And
would,
you're
of course, I would ask
20.
questions.
She's what, 29,
29,
30,
30.
something around there?
Like, did you ever get close? Yeah, I'd want to ask questions. Why not? Like, yeah, were we ever close?
It's very common where you'll meet somebody in their late 30s, 40s, and they'll be dating a friend of yours or a family member, and you're like, they've never been married. And the first question that usually pops up is how? Like, how could somebody have made it that long in life and never have been married? You know, fair or not, and it's not always fair, but fair or not, one of the first judgments most people have is what is wrong with them, what is broken in them that they couldn't manage to get themselves to an altar by the time they're 40. Now, you know, this sort of situation is sort of an earlier stage of that where you've made it 30 years and you've never brought somebody home to your parents. That does say something.
Yeah. And why me? Why now?
Yeah.
Like, if this show weren't here, would you bring me home? Like, yeah, it would cause a lot more questions, I think, for sure.
So we show up at her father's house. Um, Thoughts?
Another big family. We've got a couple brothers, a friend, grandmother, maybe some, they had a full table.
Yeah.
And obviously her dad is like the star of the hometown. And wow, like, favorite kid much?
That's what I said. I said it was like you realize you have other children, right? Like I realize daddy's girl and all that other stuff, but it's like you're on national TV. You're saying that your daughter's your favorite kid, and the other the two sons, at least there's at least two sons, are sitting right there. Bring that in a little bit. Spread the love around there.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think he at one point called her his miracle, and it's got to feel that way, right? Because she could have died in this accident and she lived. And so I imagine that definitely colored the way that she was parented, for sure. That she might have been a little bit more coddled or something as a result of that.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so the father was tough, I would say.
My favorite thing was he said, if you're telling all of them that you're falling for them, it doesn't mean anything.
I loved that actually. So here's the thing. I have mixed feelings on the father in that he felt like he was trying to be a tough guy, which I don't have a lot of respect for, but he also had some of the statements that I actually liked the most. And among them was that statement right there, where, I literally it was on par in some ways with Hakeem was, yeah, with Hakeem's statement of, I'm not giving you permission now. You call me when you're ready. It was kind of had a similar vibe to it, and I really respect that vibe. So yeah, I liked that aspect of it. I thought the projector setup with all the home movies was cute, but again, when you compare it against, you know, the other hometowns, I don't think it hit with the same power as some of the other hometowns. You know,
Yeah, no, I think so too. Though again, it all gives a glimpse into what life would be, like them sitting outside watching her home movies, like relationship would, she's the star, he's the supporting character in the relationship. That would be the dynamic. And the family is all six of them are looking out the window watching them watch this.
Yes.
Like, and that doesn't surprise me. Like that would be the dynamic. That's what it would be.
I feel like we've got a of all four of the hometowns, I feel like we got a very honest and accurate depiction of the actual cultural dynamics within the families. And I don't, is that common or does it feel more performant? Because all I have is Golden Bachelor to compare this against. And I don't feel like I really learned the dynamics of the three women and how the families are. I think I learned a little bit about the women. I learned a little bit about the families, but I don't feel like I could actually describe with any accuracy what those dynamics actually would play out in a day to day. I feel like all four of these families, I could, you know, write up a little dissertation on how I thought the dynamics would be with a fair amount of accuracy.
No, I mean, it's hit or miss. It's tough because I think Zach's season might have been the first season post COVID where they actually went to the like hometowns, and so Joe's would be the next season after that. But
It's been a few
it's been a few years since we've really been immersed into like the hometowns in the way that we were.
Yeah, I mean, I did like aspects of this hometown, but again, if I were Joey, this did not push me closer to Maria.
Well, Maria didn't help matters either here because this is another example of the dad saying, I know you're guarding your heart, and that's what scares me. Put your guard down, give it a chance. And so another dad just propping his daughter up, telling her to take a risk. And she says in the face to camera, like, I'm in love. I'm gonna tell him. And I knew she wasn't gonna tell him. And she ends up just completely freezing, and afterwards she says, I regret that.
It was sad to see just like the moment slip by and you see on her face as the moment slipping by, she knows she's sort of choking and blowing it and she just can't get it out. And I really felt bad for her. I really did.
Unless it just wasn't actually there. She says, like, why can't I say it? Like, if I feel it, why can't I say it? And maybe it's because maybe it wasn't as true as it might have felt in that moment. I don't know. So that wraps up the hometowns.
Yeah. Anything you want to talk about hometown related before we go on to the rose ceremony? Yeah. We did leave out one, I think, important thing that happened in Kelsey A's date. I guess Kelsey, there's only one now. But when the father brought out the picture book,
Oh yeah.
that was really I thought that, and when I was talking about the Maria thing where the home videos just didn't hit, like I thought bringing out the picture album was materially the same. Yeah, it was materially the same as the projector home movie of Maria, but it hits different and hits harder the way that it happened in the Kelsey date. And that's where I'm saying, like, yeah, everything in the Maria date was just a step behind Daisy and Kelsey everywhere. And it's just tragic because it wasn't bad, right? It just nothing landed hard enough relative to those other two.
Agreed. Yeah. No, thanks for calling that back. That was a really.
Yeah, that was probably the most touching moment except for that commercial. You cried at one of the commercials.
It's been an emotional night for me. Okay, let's get to the rose ceremony, which was in an airport hangar, question mark.
I just want to know, where was Jesse hiding? Was he just off camera? Did you notice what was that behind? Was that like a broken down rusted van in the background? Like what? Can you move that thing? Like, or was that where Jesse was hiding? I was very confused by this entire layout.
They've done airport hangar rose ceremonies before.
I was a little out on this one. I want to know where Jesse was. I wanted them to move the rusty, broken down van behind the scenes. Just the whole thing was weird for me. That being said, there was some drama here.
Yeah, there was some drama here. Joey comes in, says he's confident in his decision. He knows what he's going to do. He steps right up to that podium, grabs the rose, and Maria says, Joey, can I talk to you for a second?
I think the important thing to keep note of here is that this is the second rose ceremony in a row that has been interrupted. Now, in fairness, Joey
Related to Maria.
Yeah, related to Maria. Joey did do the interrupting last time, but it was because of drama related, an unforced error with respect to Maria. And in both situations, Rachel was none too happy.
She was pissed.
Yeah, they have some words, but ultimately, Maria does have a chance for a do over. Give me your thoughts on her approach here.
Ugh. That's my thought. It sucked.
I thought it was a terrible delivery. You know, I just didn't. I didn't think that she delivered what she wanted to say in any meaningful way.
No, Joey's whole thing is I don't feel confident in this. And yet again, she did nothing to instill confidence. He looked so frustrated after that.
I was hopeful that he was still going to keep her around, mainly because I had her in my survivor pool. But his response here, it wasn't looking good. He was not happy. He was frustrated with the entire situation. You know, I just think it was too late at that point. Too little, too late. I didn't like how she approached it. I realized that she felt the need to take her shot, but you know, I would argue that it was probably too late outside after hometown.
Well, listen, okay, so we're not going to bury the lead here. So Kelsey, Daisy, and Rachel get roses. Maria then gets sent home. What Joey says to her is so relevant. And I also like that he didn't sort of sugarcoat it for her either. But he said, I fought for us every time through all of this. I fought for us. And what he didn't say that was implied was she never fought for them. Even in this moment where she had an opportunity to fight, she didn't. Last week, I was saying, I wanted her to fight for this. I never say that shit. But I felt like how much Joey tried, gave her the benefit of the doubt, was incredibly patient with her, and she just could not even meet him halfway. And that gets exhausting. He was pulling the entire weight of the relationship. Just the discrepancy was too wide. The gap was too wide. And then he said, tonight I felt like I would have been dishonest if I, with given all the doubts that I had, if I had given you a rose.
Yeah, I thought Joey sitting down and having what felt like a very honest, genuine conversation. I feel like we probably don't get that level of just direct honesty in this show. And I really liked it, respected it. I hated Maria's response to it. She literally was just completely shut down. To the point where I'm not sure she even heard anything he was saying. Then, got into the limo and did the cringy stuff that we hate. The I don't understand, the sort of like, I wouldn't necessarily call it, well, yeah, I will. A victim mentality, sort of like, I did everything I could. Well, obviously you didn't do everything you could because you came in with regrets. You've been talking about the regrets you have. Like, how do you reconcile the fact that you have regrets and you think you did all that you can? Like, he's had to, stop 2 rose ceremonies to deal with drama related to you. He's had to, have multiple women in the house complain about you and send them home to keep you around. Like, clearly, now I'm not going to hold you accountable for all of it because I don't think all of it was Maria's fault, but like, he did a lot to bring you to this point.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day, you kind of tried to power play him a little bit. It felt like play the game with him. And on top of that, don't tell him, how you supposedly feel when you have the opportunity. Like, I feel like, sorry, Maria, I'm your biggest supporter, but there's a lot you could have done differently to change the outcome of this for yourself. These are self-induced wounds here. That's really what my take on it.
No, I don't disagree at all. I'm with you.
So this time, I'm not being overly critical.
I think your assessment is fair.
Oh, look at that. A fair assessment. Yeah.
We have Rachel, Daisy, and Kelsey going to Tulum, Mexico
Oh,
for,
they're going to Tulum.
yeah, for overnights.
Oh,
So
we're going to
that's,
Tulum soon too.
yes, very soon. So that's coming up next week. And yeah, we're getting down to the wire.
So it's Fantasy Suites next week.
Mhm.
Okay. And Maria didn't make it to Fantasy Suites.
Shocked.
That is shocking. I would have thought he would have kept her just for Fantasy Suites.
Yeah, with all of their chemistry.
Yeah. Yep. But, such is life. So, all right. Okay. Anything else you want to talk about before we move on to Rose and Thorn?
I don't think so.
You asked about my rose this week.
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that.
All right. What do you want to start with? Your Rose? Your Thorn?
Gosh, I feel like I have a lot of roses to give out this week.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I got a lot of thorns to give out.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I'm going to start with two materialistic roses.
Oh, okay. Don't steal mine.
One is Kelsey's hair. It's just so on point.
There was a lot of, she has a lot of hair.
It looks so good. I love it. I love the color. I love the voluminousness. I love the way she styles it. I mean, it was so on point this episode. She just looked gorgeous. So that
It's
gets
a lot. She has, it's like big hair.
yeah, it's great. I love it.
His big hair is great.
I love it. I also loved Maria's dress
Oh, that's mine.
for the rose ceremony. I thought she looked incredible. I loved it. I thought it was great. And I want to give a rose to each of the dads on this episode.
So you steal my rose and you're still giving roses out.
I got half a dozen roses to give apparently tonight. So each one of those dads nailed it, I have a dad that I put in that category,
Your dad's a pretty good guy.
and I feel like these guys could hang with my dad, and that says a lot.
Yeah.
You disagree?
Your dad's not really a hang kind
I
of
don't
guy.
mean to hang with like hang out. I mean like same category of guy as my dad.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Same quality of dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah, my dad doesn't want to talk to anybody.
No, yeah. So give me your thorn.
I've already hit on this a bunch of times, but I guess I just need to beat it before we're done. Which is the infantilization of these women. That just irks me. Can we please not? Like we're gonna be okay. Like can we
say infantilization of anybody?
Well, I just more mean I'm picking it from the episode. Sure, yes, I agree. But also
we treat everybody like babies far longer than they should be. Toughen up, people. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, so that would be my thorn was just like that. And then and it just builds in the insecurity, builds in your own internalized belief that you can't handle hard things. It does us no favors, especially as women. Can we please stop? Like I've had enough. Let's be done.
Yeah. All right. So my rose, you stole my rose. I thought Maria's dress was beautiful. She had some of the best shoes this entire season. I'm a sucker for a thigh slit. Like I was all in on her attire. But since you already stole that, I'll audible to a different rose. My new rose is going to be the picture album that Kelsey's father brought out. I thought that was impeccable moment, just well done across the board, meaningful. Yeah, I thought that was a great execution of an idea that was going to be sentimental, meaningful, heartfelt, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great.
Yep.
What about your thorn?
So for thorns, this is another week in a row where I've got like a bunch of like things that I didn't really love, but like not a ton of things that I feel passionately angry about. Sticking with Kelsey here. Was that like the least passionate, what do you call that? Hujo? Huju, the hug jump? Was that like, there was like no effort put in? She just sort of like kind of walked up and then just sort of like jumped. So yeah, so that's my thorn. I want to see if you are going to do the run, jump, hug thing. I want commitment. I want passion, and I want to see some elevation off the ground. And Kelsey, not giving it to me this episode. Zero giving it to me this episode.
We're going to have to try it. It looks harder than it is. I'm sorry. It looks easier than it probably is.
I mean, how hard is it?
You have to be coordinated somehow. I'm nervous just thinking about it.
You're an athlete. If anybody can do a run, jump, hug, I think it would be you.
We'll see. Okay. Stay tuned. I will report back. Okay. All right. So that wraps it up for tonight. Yeah. So we will be back next week with all of our opinions on Fantasy Suite Week. So definitely stay tuned for that. And again, if you're not subscribed, do that now so that you can be first in line to watch next week's episode. Also hit that bell icon so that you can get alerted when we add new content to our channel. Speaking of new content, we on Reactivity TV are on Instagram, and you can follow us over there at Reactivity TV. We also have another podcast called Wishing You Well, where me and my fellow therapist co-host, Catherine, help you navigate your wellness journey each and every week. And this week, she and I are answering some listener questions specifically about therapy and essentially how to know when to say when with therapy too. So that maybe is a theme of the week that we're exploring. So you can check that out on YouTube. You can also find that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can follow along with us at Revive CFW on Instagram. You can follow me at Amy Albero LCSW. Check out our website, revivecfw.com. And you can also send us your emails to reactivitytv at revivecfw.com. That can be for any recommendations, that can be for feedback, whatever it is you might want to know or want us to know.
Or questions. We'll take questions.
Take questions. Also, one last ask of you. I'm sorry, I'm being very needy tonight. But what I would love to know in the comments or like directed to that email address, what should we be watching after The Bachelor? We've only got like 4 episodes to go. So we need to get in line. We need to figure out what we're doing next. And we want to watch what you'd be interested in hearing us talk about. So drop that in the comments, or again, you can email us at reactivitytv at revivecfw.com. Okay. I think I've got it all.
Sounds like everything.
All right. Are we ready to get out of here?
Let's get out of here.
Okay. We'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
See ya.